Good afternoon, all, and welcome to Phillip Trading Podcast. I'm James, Marketing Executive for Phillip Futures Sdn Bhd. So we are happy that today we have David Ng, proprietary traders from Iceberg, who would like to share his own view on soybean futures with us. Okay, so how are you being, David?
Hi, James. Yes, it's good to be back on your podcast again.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the topic for today is trading strategies for soybean futures. So as we can see recently, the prices for the commodities futures keep flying and hit no high. So David, can you share about your view, like any of the reason that had causes the increase in the prices of soybean? Yeah.
Yeah, I think if is we are indeed in a very interesting time. If you are trading commodities, be it in the grain market or even, for example, if it's closer to home, if you're trading on a palm oil market, palm oil market has hit an all-time high last week. So I think same goes for grains. You look at corn, you look at soybean, they are reaching multi-year highs. I think there's a couple of reasons that actually factor into this kind of rally. I think firstly, definitely we are looking into supply being very little and demand is actually picking up because of, I think a lot of them are actually attributing to pent-up demand. Last year, we have a severe lockdown across a lot of major countries. And we start to see those restrictions start to lift later part of last year. So this year, we also continue to see a lot of strengthening in demand. So, two factors: you have lower supply and you have increasing demand. So as a result, price will just have to rally. I think that's and also coupled with that, there's also logistical bottleneck. We have the Suez Canal incident probably like 2 months back. Then obviously, if you look at some of the charter rates, boat charter rates are actually getting very expensive right now. So to move your goods around the world is actually quite expensive. So I think all this is actually attributing to ultimately, increase in grain prices.
Okay. So based on your opinions, will soybean continue to like go higher in this year, 2021? And why do you think so? If let's say they hit higher and higher.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you've seen the July 2021, where there's a corn and soybean contract, just yesterday we have USDA report on the grains market. So we can clearly see that stocks of corn and stocks of soybeans are still relatively very low. Obviously, there's an increase in their forecast. There's an increase in their estimates showing that probably the supply will eventually resume into the market or return into the market. But current conditions, is still pretty tight. So I would say perhaps in this coming, when you actually tune into the webinar, which I'm going to present, I'll probably go into detail what are the things that actually attribute to a very short supply that we're seeing in the market. And I think China will continue to be aggressively buying because of the African swine flu that's actually decimating some of the hog supplies. So they need a lot of grain. So all these factors are actually trying to contribute to higher prices. So 2021, I still say, perhaps I'll explain in detail in the upcoming webinar, but I still say 2021 will still see higher grain prices across the board.
Okay. So any recommendations from you to the investors which wanted to like maybe export to agricultural market or maybe soybean futures? Any recommendations from you?
Yeah, I think in the upcoming webinar, I'll be actually explaining 5 key steps, which, if you are new to the market, you are new to CME grains market, I think it's very essential for you to take these 5 essential steps to start your trading journey. I think, you have seen volatility in prices. That's actually good news for traders. That's why I say 2021 is actually an exciting year, especially for the grains market. Despite we are seeing higher prices, prices hitting multi-year high, but I think the key thing is that volatility has returned. So if you are a trader, definitely is an opportune time. So in the upcoming webinar, I'll be sharing what are the key steps to look at. So obviously, I'll be talking about Heiken Ashi as part of a different set of candlesticks, which actually is very good in the trendy market. Like right now, we are seeing in the uptrend market. So we also will be incorporating moving averages. And on top of that, I think besides technical, it's also important for us to look into some of the fundamentals perspective, especially looking to key data. Although a lot of traders will just discount fundamentals, but I think it's very crucial for us to see fundamentals, because data ultimately is very relevant, because it's going to change the course of your particular grain direction. Right now we are seeing tight supply, we are seeing strong demand. That's why prices can continue to rally. But when that situation changes, when we start to see supply coming into the market and demand is not fast enough to keep up with pace, I think price will soon to adjust. So be sensitive with type of data is actually very important right now, because the market is is actually riding on very strong fundamentals. So I think in the upcoming webinar, we'll be mainly talking about what are the key data points that we should be looking at as a trader. And obviously, coupled with that, some of the technical perspective that one trader can use if you are going into the market. So I definitely recommend, having both fundamental perspective as well as technical perspective when navigating this type of markets.
Okay. So any maybe slide you want to share with us for this
Yes.
review?
Yeah, indeed, I have. Maybe you can just share the screen to me.
Okay, yeah, just make you as a host first, yeah. Yeah, David, you have you can share now. Yeah. So I'll just stop sharing first. Okay.
So if you can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think I will cover a lot more ground in the upcoming webinar. But since this is a preview, I think I'm just going to give you what are the key things or key points that I'll be saying in the webinar. So obviously, grains market has been a tremendous asset class for 2021. In fact, it actually started to rally in second half of 2020. So you can see out of the commodity space, grains is still a top performer, followed by soft agriculture like your sugar, your coffee, then followed on by precious and industrial metals. So I think now there's a buzzword that's coming to town, whether are we into the commodity super cycle or are we in a commodity super cycle. So I think in the webinar I'll be touching more ground on this. But it's worth to take note that 2021 is actually a year of commodities, and out of this basket of commodities, you can clearly see that lumber has been a very top performer. I think it's a superstar commodity. Iron ore as well. Then corn for the agriculture space has been a superstar performer as well. Soybean oil is one of it, and obviously palm oil, which is also hitting a all-time high. So these are the particular type of commodities that's actually trying to break records. So in fact, ultimately this will always lead the question: are we going to see higher prices in our plate? In other words, are we going to see inflation coming in? So I'm going to probably speak a little bit on inflation, which is obviously a market concern. We'll see how the market actually reacted to the possibility of high inflation. The equities market actually took a tumble. So I think I'll probably will speak on this more in the upcoming webinar. And now, if you look at technically speaking, you look at corn. Just late last or probably second half of last year, we were probably talking about corn at around $3 per bushel. Right now, it's doing above $7. In this kind of market, in the sharp rally, we have not seen this kind of market for a very long time. And if you are someone that's trading a grains market for the first time, you're seeing that the corn against the wheat ratio is almost 1-to-1. Normally, it's about 1-to-2, but now it's almost 1-to-1. So that shows how fundamentals has actually changed drastically over a period of time, especially the past 6 months. Same goes for soybean. We have passed the $16 mark. The all-time high is about close to $18. So there's always a saying in the market, probably we might see those levels again. Personally, I think that 18 levels is not to say it's not achievable. It's going to be quite difficult, but it all depends on fundamentals. I think later on in the webinar, I'll be sharing more on what are the key fundamental data that you should be watching closely, especially when it comes to corn and soybean market.
Sure.
And futures, if you're trading a futures, you always know the forward curve. Forward curve is something like, what are the far month prices doing? Are they, same price as your current month? So there's a Bloomberg article, I think it posted probably about a couple of days ago. It's saying that the whole grains market is actually in a backwardation market. So I think in this webinar, I'm probably going to speak a little bit more on the backwardation curve. But I think it's very interesting. If you're trading the market, is an important element for you to add in some of your trading arsenal, because watching the curve can help you to identify when the curve starts to turn, and that is crucial. Okay, so I think just very briefly in upcoming webinar, these are the few selected points which I'm going to cover during the webinar. So obviously, addressing the super cycle and inflation narrative is important. And technically, I'm going to share with probably those who are new to the market, new traders in the market, on the 5 important steps for you to take in terms of technically trading the market. And obviously, seasonality is something that's close to the commodities heart. I think it's worth to watch out on seasonality play as well, which are going to cover more ground in the upcoming webinar. Yep.
Right. Okay, thanks for the sharing, David. Yeah. So, yeah, I think okay. David mentioned about the webinar, right? So the upcoming webinar will be 18th of May. So the time will be 7 to 8 lah. So we will have David shared about the commodities trend. Okay. So you can find a link, okay, from this post, or you can go to our Phillip Futures website, okay, to get a registration link for our webinar. Okay. So lastly, David, any of the like potential risks that need to let our investor to be aware from this commodities market, like any other advice?
Yeah. Okay. I think in general, you have seen how prices react on an intraday basis. That shows the volatility has actually increased across all major grains market. So obviously, risk management is an essential tool for a trader. In fact, it's even more important if you are new to the market. So I think the key point is always, which I'm going to discuss in my upcoming webinar, is to deploy a very proper risk management tool. Regardless whether you are intraday trader or you are just a swing trader, risk management is very important, especially with this type of market. You never know, because the fluctuation in the market on daily basis is you are talking about 1 to 2%. This is quite heavy. It's very volatile indeed. So the market can go against you quite fast. So you need to have a proper risk management in place. If you don't have that, I think it's actually it's going to be very dangerous. Ultimately, you are just increasing your risk risk exposure into the market. So ultimately, I would say, do tune into the webinar, which I'm going to discuss, whereby I'm going to discuss with you, or I share with you more detailed analysis or more detailed methodology for you to employ proper risk management.
Okay, thank you, David. Yeah, so that's all for today's podcast. So do stay tuned for our upcoming event, and also do register our upcoming webinar, which is 18th of May. We have David shared about our commodities trend. Yeah. So thank you, David. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.